This is the Marketing Boss Podcast, where today's top marketing professionals reveal their best tips, tools, and strategies, and we all become better leaders because of it. And here's your host, video marketing expert, Parshell Houghton.
Hey, you guys, welcome back. It's another episode of the Marketing Boss Podcast. I'm Parshell Houghton. Thank you guys for being here today. I'm so excited to have as a guest on our show today. His name is Joe Weinlick, and you guys are really going to enjoy what he has to talk to us about today, which is the power of branding and how HR is or should be marketing. Just to give you guys a background about Joe, he is the Senior Vice President of Marketing at Beyond.com, which is a recruiting in the recruiting space. He is an entrepreneurial marketing leader and a brand strategist with a unique mix of strategic, creative, operational, and technical abilities. And he has a track record of building successful brands and building businesses across a variety of B2B and B2C sectors. And so we're really excited to have him here today. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So before we jump into the interview with Joe, I want to, of course, thank those who've connected with us so far on social media. If you'd like to connect, find me, Parshell Houghton, on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And also check out our private LinkedIn group called the Marketing Boss Club. That's where marketing professionals like you and me can collaborate and grow together online. So again, check out the Marketing Boss Club on LinkedIn. So with that said, you guys, let's jump into the interview with Joe Weinlick. So, Joe, tell us a little bit of your background and how you got into marketing.
Yeah, I probably got into marketing by mistake. I don't know that I necessarily planned it. I graduated from Penn with a degree in English, and I guess at that point I could either do anything or nothing, and I sort of stumbled my way into marketing. But I ended up loving it because it was the intersection of creative writing and really everything about an organization. So I had the opportunity to work client-side, working within an organization for about 10 years, then jumped over with impeccable timing. In the late 90s, I jumped into the tech bubble for a startup firm right as things came crashing down, but ended up with an evolution of starting my own digital marketing and advertising firm, then working within the advertising industry for Brownstein Group and another agency, Godfrey, a B2B agency. So spent a decade really immersed in advertising and learning sort of the agency side of things. So that's kind of how marketing and advertising, I guess, became a career out of something that I just happened into. I was doing branding work for Brownstein Group, and Beyond.com was a client. So at the time, going in, trying to figure out Beyond's business, who are they marketing to, what could the brand be, where should the business be, and that led to an opportunity to jump back to the client side. So now running the marketing for Beyond and really trying to synthesize, all sides of the business, digital marketing, interactive, as well as how you take sort of the client side, lead gen, but also bring a branding twist into it.
Gotcha. Well, tell us a little bit about Beyond for those who aren't familiar there and to provide some context.
So Beyond is probably the largest job site in the country that you've never heard of. Beyond grew out of being a career network. So it was a few thousand sites, PhillyJobs.com, one of them in this area. It was founded in this area in 1999. Tech Careers was the number 2 tech site, healthcare job site, et cetera. Thousands of sites. And a few years back, started the evolution, and that was part of the brand work I did at Brownstein Group, was to say, boy, you're thousands of websites, but it's really hard to build a brand around thousands of websites unless you're going to invest in them all individually. So recommended centralizing it under Beyond, really creating a strong central brand, and instead of having all of these different niche websites, continue with the niche philosophy, which was central to Beyond, but instead create communities on Beyond. So instead, there's a healthcare community, a technology community. Because what we found with all the different sites is people tended to join several sites. People have different professions and industries, and no one belongs to just one niche. So this way, we're sort of able to track niche behavior but track it across different niches.
Gotcha. I mean, that's really interesting because I know as marketers, we always hear about the power, of course, when it comes to niching down and really having things separated. But what sounds like has worked really well for you guys is to actually create communities under one entity, which is that's a really neat concept, and it seems like it's worked really well.
Yeah, it has. And I think a lot of that is almost, just some of the technical nature of how you build things, how you build your databases, how you build your targeting. Starting on that niche perspective enabled us that's really the roots, where everything we do is based upon being able to communicate to people on a niche basis. And what that really comes down to today, I think, when you look at marketing today, is, the ultimate niche, which is one-to-one marketing. How do you serve the right job to the right person at the right time? And that's where we're getting more and more into machine learning, and how can we use graph databases to understand who you are when you come to the site. So, if you don't tell us everything about you, but we are able to identify that you're looking for this type of job and you engaged in these behaviors, that you're probably a lot like all these other people who started, in the same way, and maybe we can start to match that way. And I think that's where, all of marketing's kind of going, is how do we get smarter and smarter at delivering the right content to the right people? Recruitment is probably 5 to 10 years behind traditional digital marketing in programmatic advertising, et cetera. So it's kind of exciting time in the space as we figure out, how do we start to use some of the same techniques that, say, automobile manufacturers are using to target someone who might buy, a Volkswagen.
Right, absolutely. And it's so interesting. I know that you're coming from, of course, the perspective of having had your own agency, doing a lot of advertising, as well as the client side. So I know in particular you're coming to the table with kind of both sides of the table there, which is really interesting. Tell us then, as it relates to branding, because that's kind of, I can really hear that and that passion in your voice, that branding and how you, how we're perceived is really important. So tell us a little bit about why you have such a strong belief in branding.
At the end of the day, and actually I think that one of the challenges with where digital advertising has taken us is that all too often it is short-term ROI. How many clicks did I get? I get this many impressions, this many clicks, therefore I acquired this many customers. But without the branding, you're simply continuing to pay over and over and over for the traffic. And I think for a long time, digital advertising kind of chased that. And you saw people pull money from traditional advertising, saying, oh, TV's dead, we need to put our money into digital. That's where it's at. But I think what a lot of companies learned was, if you don't continue to invest in who you are, if you look at the good brands, if you look at something like Under Armour, they're out there establishing a brand. They're not trying to just inundate people. And matter of fact, if you look at a company that doesn't discount very much, I think that's one of the reasons Under Armour can hold their price. Even if you go to the outlet stores, they're fairly expensive, and that's because they built an incredibly strong brand. That's not that they don't do lead gen and they're not, extremely effective in how they reach out to people and get people to convert, but they built an overall brand that people want to be a part of. And if people, like what you stand for, they're willing to pay a premium for it.
Absolutely. And I always tell people, there's a difference why, and when you go to the store and you have an option of, let's say, shampoos or something like that, the story and the brand, I think it really stands out and influences how we make choices in which brand we want to purchase.
I had the opportunity a few years back at the VCU Ad Center, taking some account planning courses there, and the guys who founded Method Soap came out of an agency background, and they were telling the story. They were working for an ad agency, and they happened to be in the supermarket aisle, and they looked at the aisle with all the detergents and the soaps, and they said, boy, everyone was just selling new antibacterial. It was all features-based. And they said, this category is ripe for someone to come in and completely turn it upside down by building a strong brand and making it about something else. And Method became that. It became a product that wasn't about, look what we've done, new packaging, new antimicrobial features. It was about, cool packaging and a cool feel, and about building a brand. And because of that, they were able to charge more than everybody else in the aisle.
That's really, really interesting. It's about, I don't know, it's kind of being aware of what everybody else is doing and do the opposite.
You know, it's funny. I think
is so different.
Do that. Yes.
Gosh. So I know in particular with you being in the recruiting space and in HR, or, you know, how is that and being in this also kind of influenced your view of marketing? Because, of course, you said that HR is marketing, and I'm thinking that's a great point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, when I look at branding, I think the real brand has to be true. And I think all too often people say, well, you know what, can you create a great ad, or can you create a really good story for me? But if the story isn't true, it's gonna fall flat. I think people see through that. And where does that story start? It starts by creating a vision that people inside the company believe in. So, and who better to tell that story? I think that HR is really the group. They're the ones communicating to the employees. They're the ones who are trying to recruit new talent. If you get those two groups believing in the brand, then you're going to get a much larger audience to believe in it, because every single person who works there understands why they work there, what they're trying to accomplish. It's the reason they get up to work hard every day, because they know that they're doing something better. You know, IKEA's vision to create a better everyday life for the many people. You know, it's not to create flat packing or to create to make our lives more difficult by forcing us to use Allen wrenches to put furniture together. It's really about creating a better life. And having worked with IKEA, it really is true. It's imbued in the ethos, the philosophy of the people there. You walk in and you see it on the imagery and the signs and the way they structure their audience, their offices. And that has a lot to do with, you know, with HR and really what HR is about. That HR, if HR looked at its job not as kind of being the, you know, compliance and legal end to make sure that that people are following the rules and we have, you know, the proper health care and compliance in place, but said our job is to really help architect what the employee experience is. How do you come to be hired by our company? What's it like? What's your day like? You know, do you enjoy being here? And really started to build that mission. I think HR can have an incredible impact not only on the employees and the company, but on the outcomes of how the company does.
Absolutely. So what, you know, for those who are listening and really can see that maybe that there's some ways that their marketing and their branding overall, even on the internal, on the culture side, you know, inside of their in-house, like what tips or advice would you have that they can strengthen that?
The first place I'd look is the employee manual. I think that could be the single biggest missed opportunity companies have. Here you are, you're starting, it's your first day of work. This should be exciting, and what gets dumped on your desk at many companies is a 3-ring binder full of things you're not supposed to do. It's a compliance manual, as opposed to something that could be really exciting about why you want to work in this company. And you probably need those rules, that compliance stuff. But I love that Nordstrom's, they hand out their manual, and I'm sure they have other more detailed stuff, but their manual basically says, we have one rule, our one rule, use good judgment in all situations. Please feel free to ask your department manager, store manager, or human resources any questions at any time. And that's it. That is the manual they hand to people, and it says, we trust you, we hired you because we think you have good judgment, now use it. And what could be more empowering? So doing something different and creating, it doesn't have to be one page, but an inspirational employee manual, I think, is one idea that most companies miss. Another is that in a lot of companies, especially small companies, the human resources department may place more ads than the marketing department. They're called job advertisements, and yet most people, and that's the business, we're in here now, so I see job advertisements all day long, and we're constantly trying to match job advertisements with people. The problem is most job advertisements are written really poorly. They're like requisition forms. Here's what we need. We're looking for someone who fulfills these 27 bullet points. By the time you get done reading it, you're not getting people excited. You're probably ruling out the people you want most for the job. So taking a look at job advertisements and approaching them and saying, how do we write something that's inspirational, that brings the people we want to this job, and that doesn't read like a litany of must-have proficiency in Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel, must have 5 to 7 years of experience, but instead talks about what the company stands for and what it would be like to be an employee here, and how, as an employee, you could make an impact on your own life, on the company, and maybe in the world.
Absolutely. I mean, it makes me think, too. There's a book that I've read recently called Driving to Perfection, and he talks about, I know his first name is Brian. I think his last name is Fine. I can't ever say his name. That's why I don't want to mess it up. But I'll put a link in there for everybody. But yeah, he actually talks about as well, like when the employees come on board, he actually has a logo that's created. And it's a really fun, interesting logo that basically embodies all the different, qualities and values of the company. And that logo is usually on everything. It's on their paper or on their call sheets, on a bunch of different areas that just always remind them of those values. And so it just kind of reminds me, or it makes me think parallel to how simple it is that Nordstrom just says, hey, here, we trust you guys. We hire you because we trust you. So forth. It's so interesting how, like you mentioned, how the recruiting space and HR is evolving, and it's really linking to branding and marketing.
Yeah, and there's even a lot of debate right now. Some people saying, recruiting should actually fall in marketing. That it's a marketing function to recruit people and bring people into the company. Although I guess my definition of marketing almost flips that on its head. I tell my teams that in marketing we're responsible. We have a responsibility or accountability for everything that the company does, but yet we have almost no authority over anything. So, our goal in marketing is to try to build product, sell product, improve employee morale, improve all these things. And we should care about IT and human resources and sales and operations. However, the way that we influence them is by figuring out how to tell better stories and learning how to create that vision that other people in the company want to follow.
Absolutely. And, as things are evolving, I always love asking this question. What do you think marketing will look like in, let's say, 5, 7, maybe even 10 years? What do you think is going to be different in how all of this happens?
That's a fascinating question, because there's the two sort of divergent trends in marketing that I think I constantly grapple with. On one hand, you have branding, which is cerebral, it's macro, and on the other hand, you have big data, where we can learn so much about absolutely everything. So you have this convergence in marketing, which I don't think most organizations have come to grips with, which is how do you blend those two? How do you get people who can think from a branding perspective and can think broadly and look at macro trends and look at the impact of emotions, but at the same time are able to dive in and look at micro trends and what's happening with the numbers, when you can start to analyze what every single one of your customers is doing and how to reach them. And I think that's where marketing needs to evolve to, where it's data science and cultural anthropology. And how do you mix those things together to do really savvy marketing?
I love that. Well, Joe, man, your insight and what you're sharing with the audience is valuable. I'm taking notes. So as we wrap up here, any last words of advice to the listeners, as well as how people can find you if they want to connect or, have an additional question?
Well, first I'll say to connect, LinkedIn, Joe Weinlick. I'm the only Joe Weinlick under Weinlick, or I'm on Twitter, so follow me at J Weinlick on Twitter as well. Would love to, start any conversations. I guess from a closing piece of advice to anyone in marketing, the one thing that I guess I've always looked at is the tough part about marketing is, and maybe this is any job, or maybe it's life in general, but my philosophy is on any given day, there are probably 100 things you could do. And in marketing, there are a million things that we need to be doing. We need to run this report. Accounting wants this from us. Sales wants new collateral pieces. The way to move the mark, I think, and do great things in marketing and branding is to make sure that, every day you quickly get the stuff you need to do out of the way, but focus on one thing that can make an impact 6 months to a year down the road. And I think that's how you achieve branding, is you say, you know what, yes, I have to do things for today, but my goal is to make an impact on this company, in what I'm doing over the long term. And to do that, I need to make sure that I'm picking things that have a longer term horizon. And at the end of the day, no one's going to remember the small deliverables that you strive to deliver every single day. They are going to remember over 6 months, a year, 2 years, whether you made a big impact. And I think as marketers, that's our goal within a company, is to be the people making a big impact.
Absolutely, Joe. Well said, man. That was, again, like I said, I'm taking notes. This is great advice. So thanks again for being with us on the show today. I really appreciate your time, man.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Have a
awesome.
Good weekend.
You too. Well, you guys, that does it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. So until next time, remember, a good boss is a good leader. Let's go out there and serve our gifts to the world, because you're the boss. Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much for listening to the Marketing Boss Podcast with your host, video marketing expert, Parshell Houghton. We'll catch you next time.